Welcome back. We're doing 2-point perspective part 4. Our goal in this lesson is going to be to show the interior of some blocks and to begin learning about how to do prisms also in 2-point perspective. So just to keep things simple for the demo, let's do what we've been doing. We'll get a fresh piece of paper, fold it hot dog style, so that we have a standard position for our horizon line right through the center. If you can see your fold clearly, you don't have to trace it. I'm going to trace mine. And then we're going to place the vanishing points at the far extents of the paper. If you haven't already gotten curious about why they're always on the outside, it's because if you exceed the outer edges of them, you are actually only going to be using one point at that perspective. So staying between them allows us to use both. That's why we spread them out like that. All right, so the two goals here, like I said, are almost completely different from one another, but I feel you can handle probably both of them in one day. So I'm going to give you one example of each, and at the end I'll describe ways that you can continue practicing them through this piece of paper. So first of all, we need to know how to do the interior of a block. We know that we can easily draw a block. I'm not even going to use the tool by now. You guys understand what we're doing. So there's the vertical. I'm going to create one over here on the left side. That's the vertical spine. Here's the depth of the form to the right and then to the left. And then another vertical to chop the form. And I'm going to crisscross the back. All right. So this is a solid form. Last time we had our lesson, you learned how to draw a transparent form, like just to create more interesting combinations and begin attaching blocks to one another. In other words, stacking them up, building block letters, or whatever other things you're wanting to do. Sometimes you may want to show inside the form. So you could start with the solid and carve out surface windows. If you were to do something like that, you would follow, just like in 1-point perspective, whatever the surface itself is doing. This would be a good time for me to go back to my color coding just to make sure everybody understands what I'm talking about. So if this side is purple, then these guys are pointing, of course, to that vanishing point, or at least they're supposed to be. And then these guys are pointing to that vanishing point. All right, and of course my verticals are all blue. All right. So since this wall or this surface is only made of purples and blues, right, vanishing points and verticals, then everything I place on that surface, if it's meant to look flat on that surface, has to follow the rules of that surface. They have to be blue verticals and they have to point to the purple vanishing point. I'm not using a ruler. It's a little tricky for me, but it's going to look something like that. Now, if I had used any angles that go to the orange vanishing point on this wall, that would have contradicted the flat surface appearance, this illusion of flat surface. But what's cool about that is you may be wanting to show inside of that window. And if that's the case, you need to ask yourself, depending on what the object is, does the interior start here at this corner, or is it the floor down here? Wherever it is, that's what you're going to connect to your vanishing point. So like if it were a house and for some reason there was a giant window or something like that, I don't know why there would be, but it's up to you what you're building. You would maybe go to the exterior corner and then start showing it coming through. Again, it's aiming towards that vanishing point. That makes sense if you're showing inside the form. I hope you can understand that illusion in my picture. So again, if like, let's add a light source. If light's shining down on this object, you know, the flooring might be shaded, and this interior wall might be shaded as well. Well, hopefully that helps with the illusion here. The same concept applies on every surface. So if I'm doing the top, I'm using only lines that go here and lines that go here, because that is what the top is made of. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to make it a really big hole, even though I don't know what this actually is, and just go with me on it for the function of what we're doing. So I got my orange ones going towards the orange vanishing point, and I got my purple ones going flat towards the purple vanishing point. And if I contradict that, then I would be using the one thing I don't have, which is blue. Blue would be vertical. So it would come from probably the exterior wall, since I'm playing that rule down here, okay? So I'm going to go straight down. And guess what? Now I can see the interior corner of the space. This would probably continue along that same trajectory towards the vanishing point until it ran into the vertical, and they would intersect here. So you'd see just a tiny bit more orange, and then of course this new blue interior line. Okay, so my really dark shaded wall, if I just want to be consistent on that, even though now light can get through the top, it's here. All right, and then what's going on back here? Since I can see down into the top, I need a line here that is following the rules of perspective. It's that missing piece. Okay, so it needs to go to my purple vanishing point. So I can see a bit of that purple, line path. A little sloppy, but you get the idea. And of course I could open this wall using only blue and only orange. That would create a big window, and I could show you the rest, so I suppose I will, just to be thorough. I'll do it really fast because some of you guys are like, yeah, we get it. Not quite as big as the other side, but it'll do. All right, the part I like to get to is what goes in the middle. So we know that this should be making its way over here. If I truly used my tool, it would line up beautifully. It's a little wonky because I'm freestyling. So that's the rest of the purple edge. All right, and then of course this is part of my little bit of flooring, whatnot. Now, I don't know what purpose you have for something like this, but I don't want to limit you to only solid forms that you can't see into. I want you to have the ability to do completely transparent, and then some where there's holes in them. You could turn it all different directions and imagine it for different purposes. It kind of looks like a really modern fixture where light could come through, or I don't know. I have weird ideas of, like, I don't know, modern futuristic stuff like going through it, but it could be whatever you want. Cool cage for some kind of zoo animal. So this is one skill set, and that's honestly pretty tedious. If you were to do this maybe 2 other times on your own, one up high, one somewhere small, you can again change the proportions. It can be more skinny of a rectangle. That would be probably enough on that. The other skill set I want to go ahead and teach you real quick is how to do a prism. And a prism, you might remember from last time you had class, 2D1, and we did learn that so that we could do a roof on a house. So it's kind of like that shape that you think of when you think of a traditional camping tent. Okay, so it has a rectangle base and a triangular top. So I'm going to just pick a side to project it towards, although it could go either direction. I'm going to go from here outward as my first step, and I'm going to create a rectangle that's flat on the ground. So this is the first part. The short side of my rectangle is going to go to this side. Okay, so I'm drawing the bottom of the prism. Okay, this is extra. I no longer need it, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to be making a vertical line going straight up to pitch the tint part of the form. Okay, the peak of the form. So the center of this can be found with an X. That'll tell you where the middle is. If you were going to do like a pyramid for some reason, this would be a weird pyramid because it's rectangular, but you would go straight up from there and then just tie it down to all the corners. If you're doing the form that we're doing, the prism, then you might just find the center and then project that forward to make sure you're centered up. So it connects here and here whenever I lined up to my finishing point. All right, so this is the middle, and I'm going to go straight up vertically from there, and it's up to you how tall you want it to be. It makes no difference to me. That's just a design choice. And tie it down to the front two corners. This is my first solid outer part of the form, so I'm going to make those extra dark. All right. I know now that I'm keeping this visible and keeping these visible. The next step is going to be to go from the peak of this triangle to the vanishing point in line with the direction of the form. It's going that direction, so I'm going that direction. All right. And then from the back here, I'm going to repeat what I did here. I'm going to go straight up vertically. If you're still struggling with verticals, don't worry about it. Just remember, you can always line, the short side of your ruler at the bottom of your page, and that'll give you a vertical. Okay, take that corner down just like we did here. If it was transparent, you would do the other side. And there you would have a prism, a tent shape. This could be a roof on a house. It could be some complex form. I don't know what you would build it into. There's so many possibilities. It's hard to even rattle them all off quickly. But there it is. And I would do that sequence every time, even if you're building the whole thing upside down. Again, for what purpose, I don't know. Who knows what you'll need to know how to do once you get your idea going off the ground. So my goal for you is for you to not just submit to me one of each, because that would only prove to me you can do it along with my help, but that you do it at least another time on your own. Find somewhere to do it in the composition. If it's too awkward to do it on the same page, like you're not ready to do it up in the sky, but you need to try it on the ground again, that's fine. I would just ask that when you send me your work, if you chose to do another set on the ground on a separate piece of paper, that you go ahead and draw that out and then photograph both side by side so I can see that not only did you follow along, but then the second time you did it completely on your own. I would be satisfied with that. If you can go further and flip some upside down or at least make them float in the air, that's always a great way to strengthen and deepen your understanding of the concept. So I always like to use whatever time remaining I have on my demo. It looks like I have about 1 minute. I'm going to try to slam in one more example, and these are more complicated, so I'll just try to do a prism again. We'll see if I can make it happen. Ooh, 25 seconds left. There's my upside down floating in the sky tent. I definitely don't have time to get that in on the demo again up here, so you'll just have to imagine that I did. Anyway, guys, have fun. Good luck with this. Please ask me any questions you have and send me your work when you're done.